actually teamed up just for fun because we never thought that we would get into like the top 12 team of all the country. But magically how, just magically like rainbow unicorns, we did.
I think we are very well prepared both mentally and emotion-wise. We chat with each other a lot and we meet up a lot and we research a lot and a lot of guidance from our mentor as well.
I have helped my teams overcome the challenges by telling them the analogy of military conscription. So think about other policies that maybe are more familiar with us that also order certain individuals to sacrifice for the greater good. And that is a wonderful way to help you build up the case.
We all are really excited for that, and we really expect that all members of our team will try their best and have the best performance.
We were studying in the same school, and we also having participate in the same debate club of our school. So eventually we came out together and say that our should team up as a team and go on this competition. As we dive into the motion, we find out that it's not that as easy as we thought it would be, because the thing that defined in the motion cannot be found anywhere in the internet.
It's actually the only motion in the 6 preliminary round motions that have an info slide, so there's a lot of new information and new concept that needs to be taken. My team, PBC The Avengers, for this round is also a relatively new team towards debating, so there's a bit that they need to catch up on regarding some of the skills and some of the things they need to know when they are debating. Overall, they have been extremely fast learners and they are putting all their efforts into the first preliminary round.
As we are the pioneer candidates from Nghệ to join the debaters, we think that we are really lucky and it's a big pride of us too, so we'll try our best.
Come and ignite your passion, ignite your passion.
Welcome back to the Debaters Season 3, a game show for Vietnamese high school students from all over the country, and production by VTV7 and British University, Vietnam. My name is Long Vu and I'll be your host today. We've seen long hours of hard work from not only our students, but our mentors as well for this motion. And me working in education, I can tell you, this motion, it really means a lot to me. I won't keep you waiting. Let's take a look at our motion for today. That we support the implementation of the Teacher Draft Program. The Teacher Draft Program would require university graduates from all disciplines who finish in the top 5% of their cohort to be employed and teach at a primary or secondary school in a low socio-economic area in the country for at least 2 years after graduation. That's a long time, right? This motion was based on the fact that schools in remote areas suffer from a severe shortage of quality teachers, and it affects the education of the lower income families. First up, let's start with our proposition team, the Rainbow Unicorns. And second, we have our opposition team, PBC The Avengers. Please give a round of applause for our two teams, guys. And of course, I could not survive without my lovely panel of judges. And I won't keep you guys waiting any longer. Without any further ado, from our proposition team, we have Kian. And on our opposition team, we have Valenji. Please step up. Are you better nervous? Is it like less nervous now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. For round one, each team will have 3 minutes to present your speech. Keep in mind, this round will have no POIs. The proposition team will go first. Are we ready?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Let the debates begin.
As a boy, I am proud to spend 2 years in mandatory military service because it's saves the masses and makes me stronger, even if I have to sacrifice. And so, as a young and brilliant graduate, I would proudly contribute to the development of the destitute areas through the Teacher Draft Program, no matter what the cost is. Our policy will include, first, we do just like what the info site has said, and next, we will pay graduates a normal living wage in order to help them live by, just like other teachers, and bonuses if they perform well. We will also make the students join a compulsory class about teaching and dealing with harsh conditions of the undeveloped area. And they will only be considered top 5% if they pass this class. And lastly, if they were offered a job before being drafted, we will ensure that job will stay with them. And if not, we will provide them a stable and good work after the program. And now, let's move on to our first argument. The teacher grad program will balance out the differences between the rural and urban areas. Here is our problem. There is an increasing regional discrepancy between the rural and urban area. One, the unemployment rate is rising in urban areas because the job standards rise really higher day by day. And two, there is a significant shortage of labor in the poor region. And by teacher draft, we can solve this problem. Why? Firstly, by this program, we will improve the educational aspects of the regional imbalance. Why? A, because the graduates are excellent and competent people. They have great skills and knowledge to teach others. They are also trained and have modern style of teaching, which will suit children because they are young. And B, this also means that rural students can get access to better education, making them more effective at competing with city students. And because of this high quality education, good people won't flee to cities anymore, minimizing brain drain. Furthermore, at least graduate study in many fields, this diversify education in rural regions. And why solving educational inequities is important? Because it helps students to grow intellectually and also make them have a better job prospects in the future and improve the future workforce for the impoverished area. The teacher draft also make improvement in education, and thus many foreign companies will see the potential of the students, and this will attract them to invest in this area. Proud to propose. Thank you.
We believe that a world in which the implementation of the teacher draft program is supported is less effective than a world without it. To begin with, we'll clarify our stance. Before coming to some rebuttals, it is the government's duty to improve the situation, and the top 5% of graduates, they don't have the obligation to do so, and 2 years is not enough to make a change in education. And in rural and less developed areas, the issue with education isn't worth the lack of teachers. It is with student retention. This is because of an existing bias from rural parents who don't see much in the value of education, opting to focus their children on farming and taking care of the family, and rather than getting a good degree or a good job. Second, coming to our counter model, we'll create an incentive for teachers to volunteer for teaching duties in low socioeconomic areas, like giving them more benefits. We'll prove why is this policy exclusive to our site only. All of the positions in low socioeconomic areas are filled with drafted teachers, meaning that regular teachers who want to give a helping hand will not have the positions to fill. Moving on to our first argument, drafted teachers make for ineffective education. First, there are two layers in this argument. The drafted teachers are poor teachers. Teaching is an incredibly thankless job. If you don't have an existing drive to simply educate more people, enjoy being around children and teaching them, you'll be incredibly demotivated. And teaching is a very particular skill. Just because you're good at a profession doesn't mean you're good at teaching it. Second, the drafted teacher will neglect the special needs of students in low socioeconomic areas. The top 5% of the graduates have the drive in order to reach the position where they are in the university. They're also likely to have a lot of ambition. Therefore, they really just want to be done with the draft and got it over with, so they not care about the minor details like how many students are attending and if they miss classes, etc. They're also not trained in education and didn't intend to be in education, so probably they don't understand the educational values and goals to keep the children in school to educate the most numbers of students. This all leads to many impacts. First, students will start falling behind in classes after they inevitably have to miss classes due to home duties and family work. And with the teachers not accommodating them, students are very demotivated as they fall behind. And the parents don't see the value in education as the children make no progress at all, and the teachers don't have the incentive to reach out to parents to connect and explain them the values of having their child in the school. And how do we solve this problem? Instead of forcing the teachers to teach students from low socioeconomic areas, we'll send regular teachers who really want to give a helping hand in teaching the students. These teachers are attached to teaching the students for a period of 2 years. They're also trained in means of communication. Therefore, they will be much effective teachers, but also they will be much more effective in actually convincing the parent to have the students in school. So proud to be the opposition team.
Wow, that was great, guys. How do you feel?
Well, I'm quite relieved that I complete my speech, and I hope that my teammate will do well.
And the moment that I know both of you guys have been waiting for. Stuart, can I get some comments?
So I'll start off with the Rainbow Unicorn team and Nghị. Your delivery was very clear. I could hear your points very clearly, and you also broke down your points very clearly as well. And you've also talked about motivation, including bonuses and motivation. So you're starting to see, you've preempted what these guys are going to be saying, and you've amended your policy regarding that. Sometimes we need to gain a little bit of clarification. So for example, you were mentioning that, yes, they bring great skills and knowledge, but again, we can't equate that to effective teaching, and we need to think about how that's going to affect a student in the classroom. For your delivery, I know you were nervous, and you did really well. I think going forward, if you can just slow it down a little bit or just include some pausing, it helps us as judges solidify which points are where and what the support is to which point. But generally speaking, I liked the ideas. I thought the ideas were great. Some of them may have had a bit of an assumption. So, for example, you kind of assume that once placed, all teachers are going to want to leave. And you also need to think about what happens if maybe it's a majority, but maybe it's not always going to be 100%. So there were a few assumptions thrown in there, but generally speaking, I think your ideas were strong. But now the tough part is, how are you guys going to react to the ideas presented on the other side? So with all of that considered, but my 10 points, just largely in terms of delivery and clarity of content, is going to go for the proposition team. So I'm going to go for Rainbow Unicorn for my 10 points.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Long.
In general, I think you guys did a good job. However, that's something I would like you guys to work on. Now I hear a lot of technical analysis on how people will behave like this, behave like that. But there's a lack of illustrations on how people feel or what are they suffering in status quo, for example, and what problems are so urgent, for example, right? Instead of asserting a lot of claims like that in your speeches. So for Kian, the one thing I want you to, maybe the one thing I think you could have done better was to be more comparative and preemptive in your speech. For example, like instead of moving to the second point on educational quality and investment, maybe we can talk about why other current solutions are not working in the status quo and why the teacher draft program has some exclusive benefits that can give an advantage. For example, for Lingqi, I think, better engagement. Because in debaters, we do not know the model from the other side, right? So it's very important for you to listen and improvise a little bit and have better engagement and response from the other side. So because of that, I think in terms of both style, delivery, and clarity, and also like a bit, better structured and more substantiated materials, my 10 points go to Kian, proposition.
Wow. So, my favorite judge, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. I felt both teams did a good job in laying out a logical step, but again, it was a little bit lacking from both sides in terms of why would this be the mutually exclusive beneficial policy versus, well, incentivize them. How would that work? Why does that not work in the status quo? Why is that comparatively better than a teacher draft program? Then I went on to the second comparison point, which was the impact. So you tell me we can stop brain drain, we can offer unique teachers. Opposition tells me that they're not trained, they're not motivated, that there would be quite severe limitations, or perhaps a lack of qualified teachers at the end of the day, and that's why you're sticking to your counter model. I think for me, this is an area that I would like both teams to develop as the debate goes on, because when we have these recent fresh college graduates, and they will be trained, so I did hear your setup on proposition, but regardless, when we have a unique stakeholder coming into the scene of education, why would they exclusively either bring benefits or bring harms? And that's what determined my ultimate decision. Not a biased one at all, to clarify, but my 10 points goes to the opposition. So job well done, and I look forward to the next speakers.
And in the end, our proposition team has 20 points, and our opposition team has 10 points. But don't worry, we still have 2 more rounds and reply speeches, so it's pretty close. Next, can you guys please take a seat? Thanks. Thank you, guys.
Firstly, by this program, we will improve the educational aspects of the regional imbalance.
It is the government's duty to improve the situation, and the top 5% of graduates, they don't have the obligation to do so, and 2 years is not enough to make a change in education.
But generally speaking, I liked the ideas. I thought the ideas were great. Some of them may have had a bit of an assumption.
Ignite your passion. Ignite your passion.
Welcome back to the second round, guys. Without any further ado, let's get our teams up here. On the proposition team, we have Kyu Ha-an, please come on up. And on our opposition team, we have Wing Yu-won. Please come on up. Before we start, let's go over the rules really fast. The second round, each team will have 4 minutes to complete their speech. POI round is open after the speaker starts 1 minute and closed 1 minute before the speaker ends. Each question must be under 15 seconds. Keep in mind, don't go over. And the proposition team will go first. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let the second round begin.
Now, let's first talk about our policies. You said that the graduates are good at something, doesn't mean that they are good at teaching it. But our policies, we have introduced a compulsory class in their curriculum where they are taught to be teachers, where they are taught to teach others and to become a true teacher. So therefore, your statement is wrong. And secondly, you said that students won't be able to follow those teachers because they are very smart, they are very good, they're top 5%. But I think this is wrong because also because of our policies, they are taught to be teachers. So therefore, they will have the skills necessary. And second, let's look at our argument number 1. So the bonus that we have introduced in our policies, it will be a kind of motivation for the teachers, for the graduates, because they will go to these areas and they will first they will be discouraged. They will find it unfair. But after times, they would think that, oh, I'm stuck here for 2 years anyways, so why not just try at my work? So why not just work hard and to earn the bonus from teaching the students effectively, productively? Overall, good teachers, they will earn those bonus. And furthermore, the government will still aid them, will still give them assistance after 2 years for them to find jobs in the cities if they want to. So they will look forward to the futures. They will look forward to the jobs after 2 years. So therefore, this is our motivation on our world. Now, let's move to our argument number 2, where the program is beneficial for the graduate during the draft and irrespective of whether they stay or leave after the draft. The teacher draft program is beneficial because these newly graduates gain teaching experience from the educational institution that they are assigned to. This program is their chance to learn and to gain experiences. And these experiences are only unique, are mutually exclusive in our world, because these experiences are the ability to be empathic and to be resilient while dealing with struggling students. And therefore, they may even be able to find life more meaningful by teaching these poor students. And they are going to contribute so much to the community, to the societies. After 2 years, they're going to realize that. And therefore, they will find life more meaningful, they will be more resilient, and they will be more empathetic. And those skills are all the skills of a leader, of a potential employees. These skills are what the world are sorting for, and therefore, they will find it easier to find jobs. And second, if they decide to leave after the draft, after 2 years, they would leave with the experiences and the skills that they have acquired, and therefore they will find it more convenient in life. And if they stay, they will be able to bond more with the community. They will be able to become more empathic and become a better person in general, and they will also become accustomed to the job and understand that staying provides them with a stable job as opposed to competing to the cities. Now, let's move to some of the rebuttal for your team. The opposition side said that this is the government's duty, but we think that this is the graduate duties, because the government have provide them with chances to learn, with educations. Therefore, they must pay back, because if we receive something, we ought to pay back. And the teacher draft program is the way to pay back. Second, you said that 2 years are not enough for the education to improve. But this program is a cycle. 2 years and there will be a new top 5%. Therefore, this is a cycle, and the education will improve gradually. And you also said that parents do not want their children to learn, parents in the rural areas. But this is not true. They do not want children to go to school because they know that the school do not have good teachers, do not have effective teachers. And they will realize that why should I send my children to a school where they can't learn anything because the teachers are not good enough? Why would I waste my time? Why waste my children's time? So therefore, they are not confident enough to send their children to school, because as a parent, you do not want your children to be learning in such environments. And finally, your policy said that you can train teachers, but we think that this is not effective because training takes a lot of time, and not all teachers are going to willingly go to teach in these areas. Therefore, proud to propose.
Okay, so my speech will split into two parts. First, some rebuttals, and second arguments. Also, I'll make some rebuttals mainly on the first speaker. Your first speaker has said that you will make students join this program compulsory, but your teammate didn't make any characterizations about who are these students, where are they from. They joining these classes depend on their first speaker that said that these classes are compulsory. But what if they don't like it? And your team should still ignore and still force them to join this class? And what if they drop out and lose interest? And then eventually the other side of the words will make no impacts, obviously. And even if they are forced to do, and these 2 years would be unthrown time, and they would mildly learn nothing. Second, your first speaker has also said that teachers would train the students. First and foremost, you did not tell us where this, no thanks, where this top 5% will have the ability to teach. Just because they are good at professions doesn't mean that they are good teachers. Thirdly, two mistakes repeated in two speech. You made two fallacies. Okay, same fallacy is that all these graduates are willing to join this program. So your second speaker had made an assumption too, that when they are stuck, they would have the motivation to do something. But this is completely wrong, because you don't even know that they are willing to do this or not. Okay, so moving to our second argument. Okay, no thanks. Again, when it comes to the teacher draft, it hampers the development of the university graduates. First of all, 2 years of the time. They waste and learn nothing from the teacher's draft. There are two mechanisms to prove this. Number one, top 5% cannot apply all their skill and knowledge they obtain during the university to teach the student, because this student only need the fundamental knowledge, and so the knowledge of the graduates became ample. For example, the proposition team could say that they could learn how to communicate. However, the communication skills they need for the job are dealing with primary and secondary school. So this would be really frustrating for the teachers in your case. Number two, what they will devote to society when they're not required in the teacher's draft program is bigger. Apparently, they are most outstanding people in the certain majors that then they could get important position in a job. In your word, 2-year teaching students with low socioeconomic backgrounds might not have them with everything relating to their futures. Same situation when graduates get incentive or teachings as voluntary on outside of the world has a greater influence has a bigger influence on the people from low social economic backgrounds, as my first speaker has mentioned before. Okay, secondly, 2 years of time after graduate is really crucial. What can they do within 2 years? What if they are not, when they are not required in a teacher draft, is to advance themselves far more effectively instead of being forced to do what they do not prefer to do. Moreover, this top 5% would use their temporary outcomes like the qualifications after university to apply for the top workplace to prepare their best future job instead of being left behind for 2 years. So here are the two impacts of this arguments. First, it makes top 5% become uncompetitive when they turn back to their normal life. When graduates spend 2 years in a mountainous area, they become less adaptive to their original environment because of being left behind within 2 years. Second, your case would either make hardly any impact on the low socio-economic or advocate the undergraduate to keep moving on the path because of the fear that they might be forced to teach again. Thank you.
Good job, guys. Judges, judges, judges. Who's going to be the most hard today? Who's going to be the most strict judge today?
We're all pretty nice.
Yeah. We're all pretty nice? Hey, no, you're the strictest. Why don't I have you go first this round?
All right, thank you so much. In this round, there were 2 areas that both of you particularly clashed on. I think the first of which is, what is the unique impact on these individuals? In other words, these individuals in the top 5 percentile. Would they be able to gain resilience and important life skills like the proposition says? Or would it be a waste of their time? Would they be able to actually lose out opportunities on important fundamental skills? I think that kind of led me on to the second question, or that is, basically, what is this policy? Because there was a lot of rebuttals, there was a lot of challenges to both teams in terms of, is this a solid, sustainable model? I think the proposition does a good job in explaining that it's a cycle. And I think on the opposition, it was still the idea of, are these candidates really qualified? Are these individuals necessarily the ones that you trust? And again, it led down to the question of, will students benefit from these teachers? Ultimately, though, I think number one, opposition somewhat principally concedes that there is a need for these individuals to contribute back to the society. It's just that your way of justifying it is, well, these are the top 5 percentile. In their professional field, they're going to be amazing, so don't make them teach. But that kind of raised a question in my head. If both teams agree that there is some sort of payback, give back expectation, why is it not educating perhaps the most underserved students of the nation a noble and worthy cause? So that was the first decision-making, I guess, element. But I think secondly, it was also the idea of, are these candidates truly trained and qualified? I'm not sure if I heard a clear answer. But at the same time, I don't think the opposition is then responding or evolving to the additional layers of information that the proposition is bringing either, in terms of how they would be motivated, how they would bring about new ideas, how they would change the landscape of education. So at the end of the day, I've actually kind of flipped my decision from the previous round, and my 10 points would go to the proposition. So job well done.
Nice. Okay, Stuart. Can I hear from you?
Absolutely. For the Rainbow Unicorn team, I'm still not sure if I buy into the idea that children are not going to school in rural areas because their parents don't think the teachers are good enough. I'm not sure if I'm totally convinced on that point yet. So what I would say going forward is think about the impact in these points, because a lot of them are still, again, kind of hanging in the air. You're mentioning a lot of similar ideas, but I need to know why this is important in this particular context. For the opposition side, some of the rebuttals, for me, fell a bit flat because they had already been explained. So, for example, you mentioned, do we know if they're ready? These guys have already said that there's a teacher training program. So you need to kind of pick at that and say, well, what other element is there hanging, which means that this group of people who have, it's been chosen for them to go enter, why is that not as effective as your voluntary group? You mentioned that your volunteers will have a bigger impact, but failed to follow up and tell me why the volunteers are going to have a bigger impact. So you need to think specifically and uniquely about your position and why that is going to be a better policy for the students, or whatever the aim of the policy is, compared to compulsory groups being put in. I did like your idea about the fact that the top 5% doesn't qualify. Why does it therefore need to be the 5%? And why couldn't it be any teachers that go through a training process? Why do we have to get this particular group in? So for that point being raised, I think that's a very strong point, and I'm interested to see how you guys are going to rebuttal against that. I'm going to go with actually PBC Avengers for this round.
And last but not least,
for Han, I think I like your stakeholder analysis skill, but I think there's some potential responses, right, that you could have done better. For example, as I said, the motivation for parents to keep the kids in the school, or the government's duty to against the individual responsibility. But you say, oh, people go to school, somehow that's why they need to give back to community, but then I'm not sure, but what if people go to private schools, they pay their own bills, for example, or their parents do that, then why is it applicable to everyone, for example? So this kind of thing, like, you mitigate, right, the arguments on the other side, but without necessarily negating them all, for example, right? For Quỳnh, comparing to Han's speech, right, I think the level of development in your speech was a bit like lacking a bit. Like, I think her speech was more connected to the first speech on their side. However, I think in your speech you have a lot of pressing rebuttals against the other side. You actually successfully challenged the mismatch between the problem and solution, right? So does it really need teachers for those areas, to be honest, for example? Or are these people actually qualified enough, or do we really need to care much about it, or should we care about the economy, for example? So I think there are a lot of pressing rebuttals on your side. I think that's why it's actually showed us a lot of holes in the analysis from the policy on the prop side. So I think for this moment, for me, I think the prop side has more burden to prove, as I pointed out in my previous comments, the effectiveness or efficacy in your solution to solve the problem. And I think opposite did actually tackle that more. So that's why 10 points to opposition.
Wow, so the first round we had 20 and 10. The second round we have 20 and 10. So it looks like we're at a tie. Well, we have a lot. How do you guys feel? How do you feel about your remarks?
I feel very satisfied because the judges have given me like more ideas for my reply speech and for my third speaker turn. So like I'm very satisfied.
Nice. Well, I think you did a good job.
Yeah.
And over here, good job. You got 20 out of the 10. 20 points.
Thank you.
That's pretty good.
Yes. I appreciate the comments from the judges because they point out my detailed problem, and that is completely true.
Well, nice job, guys. That concludes our second round. We'll be right back with the third round, everyone.
This program is a cycle. 2 years and there will be a new top 5%. Therefore, this is a cycle and the education will improve gradually.
Top 5% cannot apply all their skill and knowledge they obtain during the university to teach the student, because this student only need the fundamental.
I think I like your stakeholder analysis skill, but I think there's some potential responses, right, that you could have done better.
Ignite your passion. Ignite your passion.
Welcome back to the debaters. We're currently at a tie with 30 points and 30 points. Who will be the winner? Maybe the next round will decide it for us, or maybe not. Why don't we go ahead and start off? Without further ado, from our proposition team, we have Phùng Thùy An. And from our opposition team, we have Nguyễn Hoàng An. Please step on up. Let's just review the rules really quick. For the third round, you will have 4 minutes to present your speech. Each question must be under 15 seconds, okay? The proposition team will go first. You ready?
Yes.
Ready?
Yeah.
Yes,
okay, without further ado, let the debates begin.
So our speech will be divided into 3 parts. The first part is the rebuttal to the opposition team. The second part is the clashing of this debate. And the third part is the comparing of our 2 worlds. So first of all, let's move on to rebuttals. When the opposition team said that our policy is making it hard for the graduates, we say that this is wrong because, first of all, we train them through classes, compulsory classes, on how to adapt and teach these students, and also adapting to the harsh condition. And only when you pass this, you qualify into the top 5%. So No. So that's why our policy would work and your policy wouldn't. And also, when you say that they can advance in 2 years, we say that in our world where the teacher draft policy exists, students have to organize their time to fit in these 2 years. We also ensure their job in our policy, as my first speaker have stated. So that's your problem. And when you say that the graduate might not like it, so this is clashing with your first speaker, because when the first speaker said that they would voluntarily do it, and the second speaker, no, say that they wouldn't like it. So in your word, you waste resources in this policy, and it's clear that no one wants to teach in a place where there is harsh condition. But in our world, they are required to go anyway, and they are also trained to these classes. So this is why our policy would work. And now let's move on to the clashes of this debate. So the clashes today is between requiring graduates and also let them volunteer. We win on this clash. Why? Because the opposition said that they didn't tell us how they are going to ensure that all of these graduates are going to volunteer unconditionally and to a job that take place in this low social area. But which means that your policy is vague and unrealistic, and also it is leading to nothing, because seriously, you do not ensure how are people gonna volunteer to such a thing if it is not required. So in our work, we ensure this by requiring these top 5% to go, and in our work, we also ensure there are benefits to these graduates. As my second speaker has stated, is that we will benefit, first of all, the education, and second of all, is these graduates themselves. So that is why we win on this clash today. And now let's move into the comparison of our world. So in our world, we give the graduates a stable job for 2 years and also ensure their employment in our policy. And also this would benefit them after whether they leave the draft or not. So when they stay after the 2 years, they would have an emotional bond with the students, and also acknowledge the advantages of the land of the low social area there. So that is an opportunity for them to start a business such as a place to study. And also when they leave with skills and experience that is unique, such as they have interpretational skill and empathizing skill with students who are very poor, and also who does not have a lot to give. And in our side, we protect the benefits of the country. We add the problem of regional discrepancy. Maybe not much, but still we have solution to the problem in the long run. And we also improve the educational aspect of low social areas when these students now receive quality education. And this would attract investment, like my second speaker have stated. So now, to our worst world, we may lack fairness, but as a flaw, but we protect and ensure the long-term benefits of the educational and economic growth in this low social area. But in your best world, you care about the graduates, so you would give them a voluntary choice that no one would want, no one would do. Your policy would lead to nothing. Well, that's why our worst world is better than your best world, and that's why we should be the winner to this debate. Thank you for listening.
Firstly, this is an obligation that forces graduate students to do the thing that originally was a government problem. Firstly, some direct rebuttal. State making that hard for volunteering to go. Firstly, you are mistaking our policy, because firstly, we have stated that our policy would only take volunteer from the pedagogy, which means that these are students who learn and know about how to teach viewers. You might not mishear that, but my first speaker has stated that. And secondly, you are requiring these people to be trained. Firstly, how obligated people will react to this? They are obligated, which meant that they are forced. The negative feeling that they will have to being like, for example, I'm a person who have a very bright future because I'm a top 5% of some very big university. But now I'm forced to come to some rural area to just teach for the medium wage and just trying my best to just take some extra money, which I could already does when I graduate out of my school as a top 5%. How would that be a fine trade-off for your side to take away all the chances of these graduate students to compare to that? That is true. Your second speaker also saying that these are not, these are also graduated issue because the government had helped them to study. However, these graduate students are also came from the medium wage people. You are assuming that they all rich people, and because of that, the fact that they are trying their best to having the best outcome in their life are now gone because they don't have anything to do now. They are being brought back to the rural area where they have to force to work for the medium wage, to force to work for the extra money that they might not be able to earn because they already hate it so much that they won't have any motivation to work for these things because they are being forced overall. Secondly, let's come to our clashes. First, what class are we counting on? The effect on student and how are these affect on overall the education. Firstly, let's come to the student. Student, these are people come from the LSE, which means that they are low social economic. They are poor. They have their burden on financial. They have their burden on how to eat each day. And now you're saying that every person is compulsory to go to school. The thing that their parent might not be fancy for because they haven't had enough thing to eat yet, and now they have to go to school. The thing that doesn't bring any practical beneficial to their family yet. And you also say that by joining compulsory and making the people to be trained, you are making these people to be better. However, these people come from all discipline. They are not teacher, and the experience that they have from this might not be able or might not be compatible for them by their field. For example, I'm an IT student. I'm a person that wants to study IT, but now I have to go up to school and learn about communication skill. How is that gonna fit to my IT program? Not at all. And even though that my second speaker has stated that the communication here is between primary and secondary student, which means that they are very frustrating to deal with, and you still just assume that just by training you can go all through of this. Second clashes is that how are we being better at helping these individuals? We are helping them to prove that by these 2 years they are not wasted. They are doing something that actually being practical for them because they are doing things that they be the most fancy about, they be the most passionate about, not just studying or just teaching for these people. So by overall, on our worst case, we're still achieving that, these students still doing what they're best at doing, not just doing the thing that they forced it to do. Thank you.
Wow. So I won't talk too much because, you know, I'm not that smart. Why don't I let the smart people talk over here? Why don't we start off with, this time, Stuart.
So firstly, for Thuy Anh, what you did well is that you've identified that one of the kind of most prominent parts of their policy is that they're relying on volunteers. And you required them to explain why volunteers would want to volunteer for this kind of position. There were some ideas that we had from previous rounds that, again, we were still waiting for a bit of impact and extension from. So mentioning that, firstly, we're talking about wanting to protect the benefits of the country. I still don't know how we're doing that through this policy, and I still don't know how a compulsory requirement for the 5% is contributing to that. For Hoang Anh, you touched on something that I thought you were going to expand on, which I thought was really interesting, about the background of who these 5% are. That was something that I thought was really interesting and could have been extended a bit further, but I really liked the idea of, okay, who is this 5%? And what does it say to someone, let's say, from a lower socioeconomic class, who then, through mountains of effort, have managed to make it to the top 5%, maybe against all of the kind of conditions that surround their upbringing or their surroundings, and now they're required to go back into to teach a job that is, as you said, minimum wage. Weighing them up, I think, Hoang Anh, because you've mentioned this point, that particular point, which hasn't really been addressed in previous rounds, and I think actually brought something fresh to this, Hoang Anh, I'm going to go with you for this round, okay?
Thank you. So, hey Juan, how you feeling?
Feeling good. At this point in the debate, it's important that both speakers compare and contrast, or perhaps show me a view of how the world will look like at the end of the debate. But I felt like both speakers brought a bit of new matter, or things that were not really mentioned before, but then again was not really developed either. On proposition, when you talk about this is a long-term solution, this will attract investment, I'm curious, but I'm also not sure how I'm to evaluate that at this point in the debate without a further analysis. Same thing with the opposition, right? When it comes to the idea of it's now compulsory for these students to go to school and it's not really going to help them and it's a waste of not just the graduates' time, but also the students in these rural areas' time, I'm a little bit confused at the worldview here. Like, is it that you want students, regardless of where they're from, to be educated, to be given quality education? You just don't want it in this teacher draft program way? Or are you simply saying, well, these areas, they don't really value education, so why force it? Because if it's the latter, it's a little bit puzzling as to what the opposition is standing for. So lastly, my last point is, I guess, where it was a decision-making factor for me, which was both of your big picture comparisons. I think on proposition, unfortunately, at this point of the debate, I have still yet to understand what about the students in these rural areas? But same thing on the opposition. I get it. It might be a waste of time to these graduates. I get it. They might have more competitive opportunities. But specifically, why does that harm the students on the ground? Why does it actually not reduce the gaps in education? So then my decision kind of comes down to, okay, if I were in the shoes of a top percentile graduate at a university, would this opportunity be meaningful in my life or would it not? And on that question, my 10 points goes to the opposition, who I felt does a better job in extending that point of why it would not be meaningful for me as an individual. So,
I heard a little sigh over here. How you feeling?
Normal.
Normal? Be strong, it's okay. We still have Mr. Long over here. So, Mr. Long.
I think for the proposition side, I think you guys somehow did manage to explain there are some mechanisms, right, for us to bring those drafted teachers to those areas. And you had a very beginning, a very strong context on how the main problem is the lack of, it's a lack of teachers. I think the opposition side did try to bend over it, saying that no, it's not a problem. We don't really need that. However, they didn't really explain to me why that is not the case, right? Because if it's true that we don't need teachers at all, right, then why do we have this motion, for example? So I think I already bought in some partially from your context of like why there's sort of lack of quality teachers in those areas. So at the end of the day, right, I think I was persuaded that there would be more quality teachers, maybe not perfect as you wanted, like 100%. On the comparative, I think the opposition side, even though I really like your style and your way to deliver materials, however, I think opposition side today was a bit negative. However, the problem is that, as Haewon pointed out, what about the children on the ground, right? What do you do to, help them? How could you solve the problem if there's something wrong with education? You said about the volunteer, but then that is already happening, right? Under-explained in your speech as well, and in other two previous speeches. So at the end of the day, I think that I still see there's some better changes. Maybe not as big as we wanted, but there's still changes on side proposition. So therefore, 10 points for proposition, with confidence.
With confidence. Okay, so after all, we have 40 points for the proposition and 50 points for the opposition. It's pretty close. We finished our third round of debates, and I can tell you, there's still not a clear winner. But don't worry, folks. Right after this quick break, we're going to have our reply speeches.
We may lack fairness, but as a flaw, but we protect and ensure the long-term benefits of the educational and economic growth in this low social area.
They are being brought back to the rural area where they have to force to work for the medium wage, to force to work for the extra money that they might not be able to earn.
Both speakers brought a bit of new matter or things that were not really mentioned before, but then again was not really developed either.
Welcome back, everyone, to the final round. On our proposition team, we will have Chu Ha-ang, please come on up. And on our opposition team, we will have Wing Yu-won, please come on up. Before we begin, let's review really fast. For the final reply speeches, each team will have 2 minutes to present their speech. POI ground is closed entirely, and the opposition will go first. So it's going to be opposite. The opposition will go first. You guys ready?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Ready?
Yeah.
All right. Let the debates begin.
Okay, so first of all, the third speaker still could not answer my questions. What if the students think their conditions doesn't allow them to keep studying or lose interest? So that's just my questions that you all three persons of yours cannot say. Okay, about some waiting, who policy is the better? Okay, or outside we use the volunteers in with good experienced teachers at the ones who can teach the student with their ability. And okay, in our best case, these volunteers could be attracted by the incentive of the government, and also they have experience and they always available to encourage the students to go to school. That's why they have the responsibility with the job more than your teachers who are forced to attend the training program in the other side of the house. Second, it helps students to have the better understanding that because we are genuinely helping them, not to force them to attend a compulsory class as well as you said. And even if our policy does not work, our arguments from the first speaker to the second speaker still effective against your cases. Second, our volunteers are selective from the pedagogies, so they need no time to training as yours and not waste time as yours, like two years and of training period. Then in our worst case, where might not have enough volunteers or teachers to work, this can be solved by the health in the glamour of the incentive, because the government would make an incentive then attract the whole teachers and keep working to be the volunteers for these low social economics background students. Thank you.
So we all agree that education is very important, right? Education is one of the biggest distributors to a society, to whether that society will improve for the better, to whether that society will be successful or not. So therefore, education is very important, especially with children, with students, with the future of the societies, which are the students. And students from these rural areas are even more specifically more important subjects and stakeholders in our world. First of all, these students, they come from a very low socio-economic area, which means they have a very poor background. Well, and also they are the majority. There are very many students from the rural areas than there are in the urban areas, and therefore, for these two reasons, these students are the more important stakeholders for the society to pay attention to. Therefore, the teacher draft program will bring these students more benefits, and therefore these students will bring about back benefits for the societies. And second of all, your worst case is that you do not have enough employees, and therefore the government can use some promotion to attract teachers. But we think that this is impossible, because who would willingly work in such area, in such bad conditions and environment? Who would work that? Who would do that willingly? And even if they do, even if there are people that are willing to do that, there will be very little. And our policy, where we force people to work there, where we use the teacher draft program, it will be more effective and it will be more immediate, and the problems can be solved quicker. And our policy may not be perfect, we admit that, but it solves the significant problems. It solves the students' problem, it brings more benefits for the students, and the students deserve these good teachers, deserve these top 5% graduate. The students from rural areas, they deserve good education, they deserve chances and opportunities. Therefore, in our worst case, that the teachers, the graduates lose their freedom, lose their right, but we do not care. We could care less about some of the people's rights rather than the social good, the main good of the society as a whole. Therefore, we are proud to propose.
This round, the points will be anonymous with no comments. So can I please have you guys take a seat, and we'll go ahead and move on to the points. Welcome back to our final results. But before that, let's reveal the winner of our most favorite speaker. We have a panel of remote judges that voted on their favorite speaker of the day, and that person will receive a reward of 1 million Vietnamese dong. Without further ado, let's see who it is. Okay, and we have our final results here. We have, of course, our very clear winner is Nguyễn Hoàng An with 76.92%. Can we have a round of applause, please? Nguyễn Hoàng An, can you come up here, please? So, how do you feel knowing that you're so popular?
Probably not popular, but I'm really pleased.
You're not popular. I think you're 76% popular.
Pure luck.
Pure luck? I don't believe in luck. Sorry. I get that you're a good debater, but you're not good at persuading me. I don't believe in luck. You're popular.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's
okay.
I
take that.
Good job, my friend.
Thank you.
And now it's time to reveal the final results. You guys ready? Yeah. Okay, come on up. Come on up. Let's reveal the final results. Please come up, guys. I'm gonna pass this around, and you guys can open it, okay? So I'll give one to you.
Can I open it now?
No, not yet. I'll give one to you, and I'll give the last one to you, okay? First, why don't we start off... Okay, can you open it up, please?
Okay, it's rainbow unicorns.
Rainbow unicorns. So you guys, 5 more points. Nice. How about over here? Oh, it's okay. Bình tĩnh. Hít thở vào.
Proposition T.
Rainbow unicorns.
Rainbow unicorns, thank you for your honesty. Okay. So what does that mean? Chưa mở được nha. So what does that mean? You're equal, you're having a tie now. So, I'll let you guys pick. You guys want to open that paper? You want to rock, paper, scissors? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Drum roll, please. Drum roll. Drum roll kìa. Who is it?
Proposition team, rainbow unicorns.
Please remember that everyone's a winner, right? Yes. Everyone's a winner, right? And the best part is we have new friends, right?
Yeah.
But congratulations, guys.
Yeah.
You guys deserve it, and you guys also deserve it too, so congratulations too. Now that we revealed the final results, Rainbow Unicorns, 55 points. The Avengers, 50 points. And the winner is Rainbow Unicorns. Thank you so much to our 3 judges for giving a great critique today. You guys hope that the students can have lots of information to take home and we can construct and do better next time, right? Thank you so much. And a special thanks to British University of Vietnam for allowing us to have a great program. Thank you so much, guys, and tune into the next episode. See you soon. Bye-bye.